Enos will return next Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock, 7 Central and Mountain Time on most of these stations.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
That's, me kind of doing a very light take on the version of Batman I was raised by, which is sort of post-Neil Adams take, which he was doing the year I was born. Neil Adams was redefining the character kind of in the cracks and corners of DC when he was first a cover artist on a lot of the Batman books in the late 60s, and then once they gave him sort of the run of the place, his look, he kind of exaggerated even more with the lighting and the grandeur, the way he would exaggerate the figure form, the length of the ears, the length of the cape. A lot of it was just sort of aesthetics. He wasn't really changing the costume per se. I tried to illustrate what Adams did with a sense of maybe somewhat photo exacting kind of take on it, while also kind of avoiding some of the comic book tropes of the glowing white eyes, which I was always having a problem with as a kid, thinking about like how the mask is pretty much on his face like it's makeup. Like it's as close to the skin as you can get the way it was drawn by everybody, Adams included. And if that's the case, there's no room to hide the eyelashes for the human being wearing this mask, so basically just his natural eyes showing, but you can hide that in shadow.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I always appreciate an afternoon Word Balloon. Usually means I'm talking to somebody across the ocean, and talking to one of my first creator friends. When I started Word Balloon back in 2005, Mike Perkins was one of the first pros I got to meet, and he was incredibly kind and tolerated my nonsense. So, man, Mike, I can't believe it's been 19 years since Word Balloon started.
I know. That's crazy.
I was back.
You haven't changed an iota.
Well, as I always like to say, the fat pushes out the wrinkles. So I got that going for me, man. But no, great to see you. And God, I'm really glad so many people are showing up, and including Louis Rivera. And I completely agree.
Lou,
One of the best artists around. Very nice. And Peter says hello.
Sweet.
Which is great. I hope people have questions. I have many, especially regarding this new project that you're doing that they've announced for May. I'm going to talk to Jurgens next week, but I got you today to talk about this this cool Batman thing. And it's
for March, not May. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, March. Thank you.
Yeah.
My brain was thinking March, but my mouth said May. But this is great. So, give me the title correctly.
It's The Batman First Night.
Okay, excellent. So obviously, and again, based on the image and the shape of the cowl, we're looking at 1939 Batman.
Yeah. We wanted it out in March because that was the month that Detective Comics 27 came out, 85 years ago. So 85th anniversary isn't really a big thing, but if we could tie it into an event like that, then we were all for it. Which actually gave us a bit more lead time as well. So,
oh, that's great, man. No, excellent.
Right.
Miniseries, how many issues?
3 issues. Prestige, it's black label, prestige format, oversized. Each issue is 46 pages of artwork, 48 pages with the last issue. So it's an equivalent of 6 or 7 issues, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Are doing a black label book from an artist standpoint,
Mhm.
are there things you can do that you wouldn't
Oh
normally?
man, the size of the pages, because they send you the boards as normal, and the
Uh-huh.
boards are double size. They're A2 size. You don't have to do it at that size, but I figured it'd be interesting to do that. Little did I realize the amount of extra work that goes into doing that. But I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the extra work, and I think the quality shows through on it. And also, you can, because it's a European format as well, you can play around with the panel structure. You know, the amount of panels you have on that page. Not that you can't do that in the American comics, but because of the size, you can play around with it a bit more. And the way that Dan and I work, it really helps that approach as well. You know, because like Dan will give a paragraph description. You know, the dialogue will be there. You'll know what's going on. But you know, he's such a visual guy anyway, as an artist and as a writer, that you just kind of, he leaves it up to you. You know, he leaves it kind of, he in a way, there's a trust there. So he knows what I can do. I know what he can do. I know what he wants, you know. So there's that process there, which we kind of picked up on when we worked on Green Lanterns together.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Alex Saviak, another old friend.
Excellent.
Hey, John and Mike, Happy New Year.
Happy
Mike,
New Year.
the things you've been showing have been amazing, a wonderful accomplishment.
Thank you, Alex.
And Louis, and I'm really glad Louis points this up because, yeah, your colorist, Mike Spicer,
Yes,
doing an amazing job. Have you worked with Mike before?
Yeah, on Swamp Thing. That's when we first.
Excellent.
That's when we first teamed up, and he's been my colorist really since Swamp Thing. Yeah, he's doing some amazing colors. I mean, I'm really kind of like most of my work, I'm doing it for black and white. And it was actually kind of interesting when we started doing the book, because my vision of it was to do sepia tones, blues, things like that. And we did that for about 10 pages. And it got to the point where it was just becoming repetitive, you know.
Okay.
And actually, Dan Jurgens brought up a great point by saying, you know, it's starting to look like a flashback rather than using 1939 as a vibrant time, a vibrant era, you know. So basically, I said, okay, let's forget the sepias, let's forget the blues, and just do what you do, Mike. And he's just brilliant. He does a great job on it. It really is excellent. I'm still hoping at one time there'll be a black and white version, a noir one, but you know, Mike does a fantastic job.
Unbelievable, man. No, I think that would be great too. I can appreciate it where Dan is coming from as far as a flashback look and everything. Yeah. So is this story, and I'll get more into it with Dan next week when we talk, but is this story pre-Detective 27? Because Batman in 27 is already up and running. I mean, that first story, you got him and Bruce smoking the pipes in the study. And
I would say it's basically, it's probably within a week to a month after Detective 27.
Okay.
Dan might know more. I mean, we did go back to those original issues and kind of figure out, you know, where we wanted to go and what kind of relationship he had with Gordon and who was his girlfriend at the time, you know, things like that. So it does fit into those issues. Actually, I don't think Julie Madison was in it until the Detective 28 or 29. So Julie's in it. So
excellent.
You know,
excellent.
So maybe it's a bit more. I don't know. But I'm kind of seeing it within a month of Detective 27.
Sure.
Simply because he's still new in the news. People don't know what he is, or you know, if it is this giant bat, you know, things like that. So.
Well, that was great too of the era, because that was still in that yellow journalism period where they would put weird shit in the newspapers and
Oh
stuff.
God, yeah.
So yeah, I could absolutely see that. And yeah, I'm a sucker for all that original stuff. Did you go back? Not only did you look, I'm assuming you looked at old Detective and old Batman, but I also am curious. A few years ago, man, it's actually been more than a few years ago now. Matt Wagner did those great mini series that really expanded a lot of those early detective stories.
Yeah.
I don't know if you looked at those too.
Yeah, I love those. I mean, it's not one of the things that we wanted to do. We didn't want to actually expand upon those stories. We wanted to create our own story within that milieu. So that's kind of what we've been after, and we did discuss various things of should we bring in a villain? Should we? But we figured that once you bring in a villain, it becomes the villain story rather than the Batman story.
I'm with you.
And and Batman in the first few issues, he was always going after gangsters, crooked politicians, things like this, and that's what we cover within this series.
I can't wait.
The first series, let's say.
Yeah, man. Oh God, that would be great if this is something that is recurring.
Right.
Now, obviously, near the bottom middle, is that a Batmobile that we see?
Oh, where am I? You see up there on my shelf?
Yes, here I'm zooming in. Go right ahead.
That one isn't the Batmobile, but so this was where is it? There you go.
Oh, nice, and it's red. Fantastic. That's the original color. Oh, that's great, man. Does it have the hood ornament too? Because I've seen it. Certain ones they would put like that kind of where it normally be like Mercury or Athena or some Greek goddess.
Oh, okay.
And it would have. I remember
necessarily did in the first issue in the Detective 27.
Okay.
But yeah, it was actually interesting to actually go back to those and go, oh well, there wasn't batarangs and there wasn't a Batmobile. He basically had a few pellets on his belt and a rope, and that was it. So it was interesting to go back to that, and he gets really beaten up in this. I mean, he's just, he's almost falling apart by the end of it.
Interesting.
Just because of everything he goes through. I'm not going to go into what he goes through, but the first issue ends upon something which you're just like, oh my God.
Fantastic. Might we, and again, I don't want you to get into specifics,
right?
But there were other vehicles early on,
right,
that were of the time.
Yes.
And I don't know if we get a chance to see possibly other vehicles.
Well, no, not in this.
Okay. All right.
There was a Batcopter and things like that, but
yeah, and auto. I believe the phrase was auto gyro.
Right.
And I don't know what that meant. If that meant a special kind of plane or a helicopter.
Right.
But yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah. It was probably one of those crazy helicopters, like the old planes that flapped up and down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and all the great silent footage. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is so funny, man. Jesus, that kills me. My grandfather came to America in the very late 1890s,
right? And
I always got to say he lived to be 98, and he remembered reading the headlines of Kitty Hawk in 1903.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I, as a 4-year-old, was sitting next to him watching the moon landing.
Right.
And in later years, he's like, John, I saw man first fly, and then I saw a man on the moon. And I'm like, my God, even as a little kid, I got it. And
yeah.
So that's awesome. Jamie Smith, and this is good because I wanted to get into some Swamp Thing talk. He says, thank you for Swamp Thing. You and Spicer are absolutely magic together. Rom, Perkins, Spicer, and Bidkar created something truly splendid. And
it was great. It was a proper collaboration. We like Ram and I were going backwards and forwards on layouts and different things we could do together, and we still want to find the time to team up again at some point. But yeah, I mean, the Swamp Thing thing was great, and it was it was well received because they extended the run. It was supposed to be 10 issues. They gave us another 6 issues after that. So yeah, we absolutely loved it. It was probably one of those books you could just stay on, you know.
Well, and I think honestly, it never occurred to me to have a legacy Swamp Thing character because I really felt. I mean, I think that post Alan Moore and Rick Veitch and Toddlebon and the like, you know, those runs were really special. And then every now and then you get Mark Miller doing it, you got Phil Hester doing it, various people like that. But it was smart, I think, you tell me during the creative process. Did Rom come to the table with, "Hey, we need a new Swamp Thing," or okay?
Well, I think originally it was going to be part of a different thing with the whole 5G thing, and Jeff Lemire was kind of overlooking the whole kind of horror section, and so I don't know if it was through Jeff and Ram or it was just Ram, but it was definitely we did discuss it, and we basically said, you know, Alec Holland's story's been told, and it's been told really, really well, numerous times.
Yes.
You know, so we just figured it was time for a new approach, you know, a new Swamp Thing, and it was already set up within the book. It wasn't like we were breaking the rules. You know, it was set up in the book that a new Swamp Thing would, you know, you got the Parliament of Trees, which were all previous Swamp Things, you know, so it was already there. So it wasn't a massive jump for the readership, I think.
No, it was great, man. And again, new opportunity to tell fresh stories. So, gee, I hope I get this Norwegian name correctly.
Frode.
There we go, Frode Larsen.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again, Mike. Greetings from Norway. Again, this is why I love doing our time afternoon stuff, evening time, Europe time, because really it gives the Word Balloon European audience a chance.
Yeah. Totally.
I hope people have questions. I mean, again, Mike and I, we're old friends. We go on for an hour pretty easy on our own.
Oh, totally.
But you know, hey, we want to give you guys a chance to talk too. So between Swamp Thing and this current project and stuff, Mike, did you do anything that I missed? I mean, did you do any 10 pages or anything?
I was basically, I mean, I really kind of just went straight into this. It's really been about a year doing this book because of the extra size, because of the extra work on it. But I've also fit in other things as well. So I did a bit on Night Terrors Detective.
Of course.
And then I've just done a bit on Ram's Detective as well.
Great.
That came out just after Christmas. So there's little bits and pieces which I've been doing along the way, when I've been able to fit it in. The good thing is, because of the prolonged deadline on it, I've been able to fit those things in as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so it's really helped with that, with the quality of the work. I mean, I've still been trying to work at the same pace that I always do. But, you know, because usually I'm a page per day person, but when you got pages which are double the size, it takes a little bit longer, you know, so it's just one of those things.
That's great, man. No, you answered my question, because I know you have been on monthly schedules before, but it's nice that they gave you enough lead time to get stuff done. Louis says which is great. Very true. That's excellent. I got to go back and read this recent issue. So I'm always a little behind unless I know I'm talking to somebody, and then I catch up. I just spoke to Ram, I want to say at the beginning of December and everything.
Okay.
So about Detective and The Vigil and a few other, a lot of creator-owned stuff that he's got.
Yeah.
Would love to see you guys work on a creator-owned thing if you'd be interested.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things we've talked about. There's also ideas that we want to do with DC as well, and different things we want to, you know, different thumbs and different puddings.
Mike Jones, good question here. Has Mike used any particular sources of inspiration or research to tap into the 30s era and styles?
Oh yeah, there's a ton of research. I mean, my Bruce Wayne is pretty much Gregory Peck. I mean, that's
Funny.
As
Sure.
it should be. Thanks also to Alex Ross, because it was Gregory Peck in Kingdom Come as well, an older version of Gregory Peck, but and so that was one of the things I wanted to do. We really went into it. I went into it so much that I spent there's one thing where there's an iconic shot of Batman coming through smashing through a skylight, and I spent half a day looking for what kind of boot sole would have been around in the 1930s. And I was driving myself crazy just trying to, would they have had that kind of pattern? Would they have, so it's to that minute detail of research. I ended up with hobnails because it's just cool. So I'm not sure a billionaire would have had a hobnail boots, but Batman's it's part of his secret identity. That's what I'm thinking.
I earlier focused on the cowl, but the costume, the fabric for the costume, did you
Right.
consider what kind of 30s fabric?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot heavier. It's a lot kind of leathery kind of thing.
Right.
But then again, you want to play with the movement as well. So sometimes it's a bit more flowy, and we have gone with those original colors, where it's the dark outside, the light blue inside, the purple gloves, all that kind of stuff, So we've really got into that. The big yellow belt going on there.
Excellent.
Pouches,
Pouches, pouches or capsules?
It's capsules. Yeah.
It's just all right.
Yeah. There's no pouches. I've kind of got a little bit around that, because every now and again he'll pick up a knife from one of the gangsters or something, and he'll want to analyze it later. So I've kind of made the belt a little bit magnetic, so you can just clunk,
Oh, that's hilarious! Outstanding.
Yeah. It's just little things like that which I want to play with, which people probably won't pick up on. But it's just a way that my brain is working. There's a sequence early on where Commissioner Gordon is talking to Bruce, and Bruce is in his Alfa Romeo, and he asks Gordon if he wants a lift, because by this stage in Detective 27 they're good friends,
right?
And so there's this little section where Gordon's smoking a cigar, and he puts it out on his shoe, before he gets into Bruce's car, and then puts the rest of the cigar into his pocket, because he's still got that street cop mentality, so there's little bits like that which people won't necessarily notice, but I would as a creator.
I think that's great, man. That all sounds great. Jay says he would love to see the Swamp Thing team do Doctor Strange. That would be cool.
Right. Yeah, that would be cool.
Have you done Doctor Strange before?
I did. I did a few pages. It was in one of the crossovers. James Robinson was writing it. I loved it. But it was more to do with a different character. Doctor Strange was in it, but it was more to do with a different character. But yeah, that would be quite interesting. Yeah.
Are you DC exclusive currently? Is it,
I was until last May.
Okay.
And I haven't renewed it at the moment mostly because of this project, because I was on it and it was going on for a long time. So we didn't necessarily have to renew it at that point.
Understood. Are you satisfied with where you are schedule wise? Will this come out? Will this come out monthly? Will it come out bi-monthly? What's the
monthly?
Yeah. It is monthly. Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful to hear.
I'm not halfway through issue 3, but I'm almost halfway through issue 3 now.
Excellent. First of all, JD says that Batman cover image reminds him of the Green Hornet year one series.
Right, nice. Excellent.
Yeah, Matt Wagner and I want to say
it was Alex, right? Alex Ross?
No,
he did the covers.
Yeah. Aaron, I want to say Aaron Campbell was the interior.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Artist back then. That was a while ago, but no, that's
right.
Listen, man. First of all, I'm a sucker for old Hollywood and pulpy, both real pulp and comic book pulp.
Yeah,
So I love this period as well.
yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm excited for that. Ed Cato joining us. Hey, Ed.
Hello,
Oh man,
hello.
pages Mike has been posting, teasing us with, have been phenomenal. Are we seeing more, Mike? Do you have an Instagram account where you're posting more?
I do. I'm mostly posting them on Facebook and Instagram. I'm reluctant to put things up there which DC haven't shown yet.
Certainly.
There was that iconic thing which I thought was one of the images they would have shown straight away, but I guess they're holding back on it. So there's certain pages there which are like, okay, this is, and you can really kind of show pages which aren't going to interfere with how people see the project as well. So yeah, you have to play it. You don't want to step on any toes,
Certainly. I was telling you off the air, the news came down either today or yesterday that Ben Abernathy is leaving DC, right, not only as executive editor, but in charge of the Bat books. Who is your editor on this?
Because it's Black Label, it's Chris Conroy and Matthew Levine. So,
great.
Yeah, great guys to work for. They're on top of it all the time. They're really kind of into it. And the thing is, like when Dan and I first started talking about this project, I had done a few pages in the Generations thing that Dan was co-writing with a bunch of other guys, and in one of my sections there was a Batman 39 kind of in there, and that was the point where Dan said, let's pitch a Batman 39 book, right? So at the time I was just starting Swamp Thing, and so I said, well, what I'll do is I'll do a pitch illustration for you, and if it gets picked up and they want to do it straight away, then I'll step back and let you do it straight away, because I can't do it while I'm doing Swamp Thing. And luckily or unluckily, I don't know, luckily for me, it didn't go anywhere. Dan didn't really hear anything, but as Swamp Thing was coming up to being wrapped up, I sent it again in to the Bat office, and it didn't get anywhere again. And I was wondering why that was, and I guess they had their own ideas of what the Bat books should be, which is fine. But because Ram and I were pitching other things at Black Label as well, and because I had that working relationship with those guys, I said to Dan, well, let me show the Black Label guys this. And they were into it straight away. They were like, yes, let's do this. And it opened it up for us, to put a bit more of ourselves in, not to be tied too much to the DC universe. So that it worked out a lot better, I think, being in the Black Label.
I wonder if the initial hesitation was because they were already planning to do Phil Hester and Tom King's Gotham City Year One, which takes place in the 60s rather than 1939. But again, another retro look.
Right.
And
that's a Black Label book, right? Is that?
I believe it was a Black Label, and further, it really was more about Bruce's grandparents, of the current continuity rather than it being a real Batman story per se.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I loved it. It was a Slam Bradley.
Oh yeah.
So,
Phil's artwork is just brilliant. Anyway,
is there possible room? And again, I don't want you to spoil any specifics, but is this definitely just a Batman in Gotham 1939 story, or might we see other beyond Gordon and the other supporting detective characters? Because certainly this is the era of Dr. Occult.
Right,
Slam Bradley and people.
No, we don't. It's very much like a Batman thing. The whole story probably takes place within 2 days, kind of.
Oh wow! Okay.
And so it's very much a wham bam wham bam wham bam kind of thing. And like I said, we didn't want to introduce any supplemental characters, because then the book becomes about that rather than Batman. So. Sure. We really wanted to center upon Batman and Bruce Wayne, and show the development of himself and why he makes the. I'm trying to work my way around it, so I'm not.
Oh yeah.
Teasing too much. Try and figure out the way his brain works and why he doesn't do some things and why he pursues it in that direction. So there's different aspects there.
Very cool. God, I remember when that Generation story came out, and it was like, you had original Superboy,
Right,
and you had 39 Batman.
right.
I thought that was great, and I love that classic design. I wonder, and I don't know if this either you were told this or you sense this as well. It's funny because obviously this year with Mickey Mouse and Steamboat Willie hitting public domain, Wade and I were talking about obviously 9 years from now or whatever, Superman and Batman are going to kind of be in the same positions.
Right.
And I wonder if doing a story like this might protect the original design of Batman in a different way, where they go, hey, look at this. This came out last 9 years ago. It's it's more than I don't know, and I
I have no idea about that.
Yeah. So do you also I also talked about how public domain works differently in Europe than it does here. Do you know the statute for public domain? Is it 75 years? Do we know? 50?
I mean, I'm just trying to think because they recently didn't Peter Pan come up?
Did.
I know Sherlock has been up for a long time.
Oh yeah, a long time, absolutely.
Maybe it's 100 years. I don't know.
I think it's less. I do think it's less in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I do. And I mean, God, hell, people were doing Sherlock Holmes stories back in the 80s.
Right.
So, I mean, and, I think without any authorization from the Conan Doyle.
Okay.
So, Louis wants, first of all, now you went back to the UK. How many years have you been back now?
2.5 years now.
Only 2.5. Okay.
Yeah,
COVID screws my brain. I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, it was during COVID that we came over. So it was a crazy time.
Okay. Oh, Mike says it's 70 years in the UK. Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
It was around 70 or 75 years. Right. That's cool. And Louis wants to know when you might be coming back to the States for a convention.
I'd love to at some point. At the moment, because I'd spent 20 years going backwards and forwards, and so at the moment I'm still a little tired of the Atlantic traveling. I mean, Lou's the first time he's actually flown over this year, because he works for CGC. He does a lot of the
cool
things with getting stuff signed and all this kind of going to conventions, all that kind of stuff. So maybe I think it was the first long haul flight he's been on. So maybe he'll understand why at this precise moment I'm not eager to get onto another flight. I have been asked by a few conventions, but at the moment there's a lot of European cons that want me in there as well. So
sure,
yeah. Last year to Spain, yeah.
They're very good. That's cool. Man, back in my years when I was covering boxing, HBO proposed to my sports radio station, we'll fly John out. It was for a Nassim Hamed featherweight championship fight back in the 90s. And it literally was, okay, we'll fly John out. He'll have about an hour or two before the fight. He'll see the fight, then get in a cab, get back on another plane and come right back. I'm like, no. Yeah, right. I'm like, I know a couple of years later when my only European trip, I went to Amsterdam. I'm going to Dublin in March, which I'm really looking forward to.
Right.
They should get you, Mike, for the Dublin show. That would be amazing.
Right.
They're doing.
I mean, I know that Christian Ward lives in the same town as me, and I know that not last year, but the year before at New York, because he was launching something with Oscar Isaac at that time, and so he actually just went out, did the thing, and came back, and I'm just like, what?
I couldn't do it.
No.
When I flew to Amsterdam, it was the only time I flew internationally. Right. I have to admit that I was, and it was landing in Heathrow, and then another hour flight at different hours.
And coming this way is rough. coming this way is rough because you don't sleep on the plane, you know. So you land and it's morning, you know. It's 8 o'clock
Sure.
in the morning.
Yes.
So you can't necessarily go to sleep because you'll screw yourself up completely. Like going back over there, you would land mid-afternoon.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
And that's
so you've only got a few hours before you go to bed. Here you've got an extra day.
yeah, we were Thursday through Monday. We flew back on Monday.
Right.
But yeah, I know I was pacing the aisles just because I had to get out of the chair and, you know, just kind of walk
Right.
around and move around and stuff. So no, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Absolutely, man. So with Marvel, was it your X-Men series with Marjorie Liu? Is that one of the
Yep.
last things you did at Marvel?
No. That was some time back. The last thing was Iron Fist, was it? Maybe, or Carnage or Iron Fist. I can't remember.
Okay.
No, maybe I think Iron Fist was after Carnage.
Okay.
Something like that. I'm just trying to figure it out now.
No, I understand, man. And again, yeah, you know, it's not a test. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, the Iron Fist thing with Ed Brisson was fantastic, and Ed's another guy I'd love to work with again. You know?
Ed is great. I'm a big fan of Ed's writing as well.
Yeah,
So that's I could definitely. Well, I've got my Marvel Unlimited. I'm gonna have to go back and
right.
read your guys' run. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Too funny. So yeah, what else can we talk about, man? Like I said, I remember one of the early Florida conventions. I've probably one of those FX shows that Mike Broder was doing.
Oh yeah.
Prior to him doing GalaxyCon now.
Right.
And so, you know, I would imagine. Do you still have a good relationship with Mike? He, you know, God, he's got multiple conventions all over.
Yes. He's and I think one of the ones, I think it was in Kentucky, right? I think he only got that one because it was right next to the bourbon distillery.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's outstanding. I went to Tony Moore's for a while, several years. Tony was doing a show that was called Cincy Comic-Con because it was just across the river, but it was in Covington, Kentucky. So that's been the only Kentucky show that I've ever done.
Okay.
But, you know, that was fun. And actually, cool little town. I had no idea.
Okay.
But, it's a nice convention center, several hotels, and even like the local food. Got an amazing Korean place in Covington, Kentucky. Who would have thought?
Yeah. The one thing I liked about Broder's shows was that everybody was equal. You know, it wasn't the celebrities have the nice green room and the comic artists have a bag of crisps. You know, it wasn't that kind of thing. Everybody was in the same place. You know, that was the vibe I got when Beth was running MegaCon as well. You know, it was that whole kind of, you know, you were seen. You know, it's a comic convention, so you know, really you should be equal to everybody else. You know, there shouldn't be that kind of system there. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that approach to it. You know,
absolutely. I remember Chuck Dixon and I talking to Ron Glass. From Serenity and the Firefly TV show, and Barney Miller, and just having a great conversation with him.
Yeah.
And
you can talk to these people. You don't have to be, you know, Mr. Fanboy.
Right.
You know, it's. I mean, I've been at conventions and spoken to people who've been in shows, you know, in Doctor Who or whatever.
Sure.
And they've come back to me and shown me their Spider-Man tattoo. You know, it's just. they're just as big of fans as we are sometimes. So
absolutely, I remember one of those Mike Broder shows. I met Peter Graves from Mission Impossible,
right?
And it was great because by Sunday I'm like, "How you doing, Mr. Graves?" He's like, "Hi, John. How are you?" And it's like, that's awesome, man. He knows who I am, you know. So I get it absolutely. And also,
as long as you don't push it too far, as long as you don't go in and go, "Oh, I'm going to get photos of everyone," you know. That's not the way you should act anyway in a green room, you know. So
absolutely. I'm a Star Trek freak,
right?
And Mitch Halleck at Terrificon had Jonathan Frakes
Mm,
and Rebecca Romaine from Strange New
Right.
Worlds,
Yeah,
and of course Mystique. But especially with Frakes, I mean, my God, I've been a Next Generation fan since
yeah.
it premiered, and I'm like, don't be Kathy Bates, don't be from Misery, don't be that guy. And it's like, and so I was very, very careful because we did keep running into each other,
Right.
and also he was very sweet. A few weeks before the convention, I interviewed him via Zoom,
Right.
and I'm like, hi, Jonathan. I don't know if you remember. He's like, yeah, we just talked like 2 months ago. Of course I remember you. I'm like, okay, all right. And inside that's me, just like, don't fuck this up. Don't fuck
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah. No, he's a lovely guy. We actually met at MegaCon once, and it was actually Marina Sirtis that told me to go over and chat to him because
Oh wow.
at the time I was the Captain America artist when I was talking to Marina, and then
Sure.
she told me, she said, next convention Frakes is at, you got to go up and talk to him. And he, first of all, he was a bit offish, because we were in the bar, and the last thing you want is somebody coming up and being a fanboy at the bar.
Absolutely.
And so, he was kind of, I said, oh, Marina Sirtis told me to come over and talk to you. Oh, yeah, who's that? And all this kind of stuff, But we eventually turned it around, and I said, I've drawn Captain America. And from that point, because he used to dress up as Captain America on the parades and everything,
That's right.
he was in there. He was just like, oh, brilliant.
He told us it was me, Jim McCann, and John Hickman
Right.
that about doing those public appearances as Captain America. And he said he was at a Blood, Sweat, and Tears concert in the mid 70s at Madison Square Garden. It was in the middle of the summer, and it was balls hot. And they were in the green room for the concert, and it was him and the guy that would show up as Spider-Man.
Okay.
And the band is like, hey man, it's hot as hell. If you want to take your masks off, it's totally fine. So Jonathan is like, oh yeah, absolutely. Spider-Man wouldn't do it, stayed in character. And you get those little bottles of beer and stuff, and he was sucking his beer through his Spider-Man mask. That's how he was drinking his beer.
Well, even Peter Parker lifts his mask up to do that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, man. And Kiss Mary Jane, absolutely, man. Wow. Oh, that's interesting. JD wants to know, you draw by hand. Do you do any digital inking?
No. It's all by hand. I have drawn digitally before, but I couldn't get into it. I appreciate the guys who can do it.
Sure.
But for me personally, I feel there's something missing. There's a physical connection that's missing there. I like to. It's you want to get arty-farty about it. It's almost like part of your soul travels down the brush.
I'm with you.
It goes onto the page, and I always feel there's that glass that's in between, you and the digital thing, and that spontaneity. Because the one time I was playing around with, I think it was Casada's Cintiq, and I said to him, so I want to do a dry brush here. How do I do the dry brush technique? And he said, well, you do the line, and then you select and you pull it down. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know I'm going to do the dry brush technique until I've done the dry brush, And so it's a disconnection for me.
Yeah.
It's like it's you have to think one step ahead rather than having that instinct that goes onto the page. I think that's the way I see it personally. But I do admire the guys who do it like that. And I have tried it, but it's not for me.
No, that was always my first question when I would meet people that were using Wacom's and Syntax and everything. And I just imagine the stylus being so different from the various brushes that you would use. I was just talking to another Mike at the beginning of the week, Mike Allred, and he was talking about the brushes he uses and why he uses them and stuff.
Right.
So yeah. Jay wants to know if you do convention commissions. What's the most interesting request you've ever had?
I kind of like it when people want something out of the ordinary. Somebody might want Asterix or Spirou or something like that. It's always nice to do something different in a way. Oh man, there's so many. There's one guy in Germany who always asks for a recreation. So that's not only kind of doing it in your style, but also doing it in the style of the person who's done it. And it's always the classic stuff. It's always Tarzan. It's always Prince Valiant. Things like that. So you actually learn a little bit while you're doing it as well.
Sure.
So that's always kind of intriguing to do that kind of recreation, because you pick up certain techniques and you're looking at these masters, and you don't want to be big-headed, but you're kind of like, I don't think I would do what they're doing. It's like I wouldn't put those little tiny lines everywhere, and things like that.
Sure.
But it's an interesting thing to go through, to think through, and so that's always very interesting to do. I wouldn't want to do it all the time, but it's actually nice once a year to do it.
I remember there was a guy that used to go down Artist Alley, and he always wanted like drum majorettes. Like he wanted a good girl sketch, and he had a photographic reference of like 50s kind of, those kind of
right.
And again, I don't know if in the UK if you had that. I mean, yeah. All right, so the kind of style I'm talking about. But yeah, that was always like his, and it's like other artists would be like, oh, there's that guy. That's what he always likes and stuff. And it's like that's interesting. Good for him, man. That's cool. I had another friend who, before Cosby got canceled, he always wanted sketches of Don Knotts and Bill Cosby together. that was his thing.
Wow.
So, Freud wants to know what the release date is in First Night. I know March.
March the 5th, I think.
Oh, beginning of March. Here we go.
Yeah. March the 5th.
Awesome, man. All right, well then we're less than 2 months away. That's great.
Yeah. And I've got a convention appearance. Unfortunately, it's like a few days just before it comes out, at the beginning of March in London. So I'm kind of hoping that I'll have some preview, like pre-press stuff, things like that. So it'd be nice to have something that people can buy at the show.
Totally, absolutely.
I'm trying to figure it out at the moment. There's lots of ins and outs in that.
Mike, do you have an art rep?
I do. Ruben is still repping my stuff, Comic Book Art Gallery.
Sure.
For this one, I'm going to retain a few of the pages because I'm always aware that if there's an exhibition or something like that, and I'm selling all the artwork, I got nothing to show at exhibitions. So I'm very aware that there's probably about 10 pages in each issue of these, which I'm going to keep for myself and for exhibitions. But probably most of the other pages will be up at Ruben's site when it comes out. So
okay.
That's at comicbookartgallery.com.
Comic Book Art Gallery. Very cool. GD says a stupid question. I don't think it's stupid. Who scans the artwork and sends it for coloring and lettering?
This is a tricky one, actually. On this book, it's been tricky because usually I would scan it in myself. 11 by 17, it's easy to do. You just scan it in and that's it, send it off. This one, because there's a lot of gray tones on it, I found that the scanner, it was graining out on the gray tones.
Oh.
Because the gray tones were very smooth in places, especially on some of the faces I've done of the female figures. I've done them very gray tone, and it was kind of, making it all bitty and breaking apart on the scanner.
Sure.
So I actually go into town, and there's a print shop in town, and they scan it in for me. They still scan it in as 11 by 17, and then I have to put it back on the computer afterwards in Photoshop. But it's made such a difference in having that laser scan of different things, rather than a normal,
a traditional scanner.
Epson Brothers scanner kind of.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, Mike. Honestly, that is something I never would have considered, and it's interesting to hear that you really need a high quality
You
scanner.
need that quality going on.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
amazing,
for
man. Louis wants to know: do you take firstborn children as payment for art?
sure.
Oh.
He's got a dog, right?
Your dog could use a companion, obviously. That sounds great. That's great. Has the family? Are they happy to be back in the UK?
Oh yeah. My daughter loves it. She's she's going to this great school. She's got lots of friends straight away as soon as she went to school. So she's absolutely loving it. My wife misses the heat sometimes. The swimming pool.
Is she an American or is she a UK woman?
Polish. She's Polish.
Oh, she's a Polish woman.
Yeah.
Certainly. I did, because for a time, didn't you live in in Poland as well, or Eastern Europe?
3 years, something like that. Yeah.
That's probably why when you said 2 years, I'm like, oh, I'm surprised. I thought you were there longer. But yeah, it was with the interlude in Poland and everything, I would imagine.
Yeah. That was 95 to 98. That was.
Oh wow!
Then we moved back to England for 2.5 years, and then moved out to Tampa.
Florida.
After that.
Got it. Wow. Yeah. That was during CrossGen, right, man?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing with that was we thought, well, we'll go for 3 years and make some contacts and all that kind of stuff, and then 20 years later, we decided to come back.
No, that's cool. Remind me, Mike, was it no, not Ruse. Ruse was
Ruse. Yeah,
it was Ruse. Okay,
Yeah,
because I was going to say, for some reason I was thinking Butch Geist instead of yourself.
Yeah, I was inking Butch on that. Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely, man. Yeah. Man, all right. Now that was, literally like 20 years ago or so.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, seriously. Yeah. It was 2001 I moved over there. And
any good stories regarding or whatever
I loved it. I loved working across.
I seem to remember that you were one of the creators like, hey, this is great.
Yeah. And until it all started to fall apart and I couldn't leave because I was on a work visa.
Wow.
It was I was pretty much the last one out of the building, apart from Alexa.
Wow. Yeah.
Because, if I'd left, I would have had to leave the country. Because I was on that work visa. So I was there until they shut the doors. And then I got into the car and I was kind of thinking, well, what am I going to do now? And CB phoned me up straight away. He's like, sign an exclusive with us and we'll take care of your visa and all that kind of stuff. So, it was all sorted. Well, I'll go on then. I'll sign an exclusive with you. Okay. Yeah.
Was it I don't even know, as an inker? Well, you guys were all in.
No. It was primarily because I'd already started working on Spellbinders, and that was penciling.
Okay.
And Drew Hennessy was inking that, and then out of Spellbinders, I started. Well, actually, when I was doing Spellbinders, I was helping out Epting on Captain America. I was doing some inking for him. And then I was asked if I wanted to ink it permanently. And at that time, I was trying to build myself back up as a penciler because I've been an inker for 3 years. Primarily at CrossGen, that's what I was brought in for.
Yes.
But, I'd been a penciler, but, in England, you do everything,
Certainly.
So I was trying to build myself up. And I said to them, I actually turned them down. I said, I'm not gonna do that. I'll wait until I can pencil something. And then Brubaker got in touch the next day and he said, well, how about if you pencil and ink alternate arcs and help out Steve when he needs helping out? So that's, it all fell into place,
That's cool. Well, I was going to ask regarding CrossGen and Ruse, how much, and that's why I said, well, you guys were all in the same place.
Right.
Working with Wade, how was it working with Mark?
It's difficult. I'm not sure Mark necessarily wanted to be there. You probably have to ask him. It was an interesting experience. I have a lot of respect for Mark. I love what he does, and I've always got on well with him. but I just don't think it was the right place for him at that time.
Well, I remember that one issue too that I think Mark Alessi or somebody else rewrote on him.
Right.
I know that obviously stuck in his craw, and also, I can appreciate, that's unless you're used to kind of a 9 to 5, and I don't even know what kind of hours.
I don't even think it was that. I mean, I saw it with other people who went there as well, and I think maybe I don't want to speak out of place because I don't want to put words into Mark's voice, but I think maybe he was offered more than was given in a way, because I saw it with other people. Like he would say to people, "Okay, I'm putting you, Alessi, I'm talking about. I'm putting you into this position of responsibility. I'm going to step back." And so this person would come up and say, "Okay, well, we need to do this and you need to do this." And then Alessi would come in directly afterwards and say, "That's rubbish. Forget all that. We're going to do this." So that was probably one of the things with Wade was it was very much like perhaps he was promised more than he was able to do there.
I can appreciate all that behind the scenes and the troubles that some creators had with Alessi and everybody. But I have to say, as a reader, I really was like, I drank the Kool-Aid, man. I was there, Ruse and Crux and so, man, I thought Sojourn was such a brilliant. It's like, why has no one ever taken the idea of a Dungeons and Dragons or Hobbit style comic book?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, my God, I've been reading comics since the early 70s. Why did it take this long for us to get? And shame on me. Sorry, Wendy and Richard Pinney. Of course, there's ElfQuest, but that was really like the only one, other than the occasional fantasy stories and Epic and other publications. And I'm like, oh no, this is a great idea, man. This has to happen. So and God, I'm forgetting Jim Chung and Scion. And Ron Mars.
There was a good bunch of books there,
Yeah, really great ideas. Absolutely, man. No,
and I see that Marvel are collecting omnibuses now, so maybe they'll get a new readership. Like the Sigil omnibus just came out.
I didn't even realize that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's everything. It's like 46.
Wow.
And I think the next one on the slate is a Mystic omnibus.
Sure.
All that those first launches kind of thing.
Yeah, I forget name. Epting's Female Adventurer.
Oh, the El Cazador one. Yeah.
No, but that was the pirate book was fantastic.
Yeah.
Great idea. Oh my God, and Chuck was writing that. Dixon was writing that. Yeah. No, too funny. No, it was a girl, and I can't remember the name of it and stuff. But I know one of my friends' young daughter really was into it, which was great.
Oh, Meridian.
Meridian, of course, it was Meridian. Yes, indeed.
And Steve McNiven started on that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's again. Well, that in a lot of ways, that was my first exposure to people like yourself and McNiven, and then Epting and all those people. Yeah.
I mean, we've spoken about the kind of things before of when I was breaking in and I was working at Caliber, and then all these Caliber guys became part of the industry, and it was interesting to see that happen at CrossGen as well. I mean, the thing when CrossGen fell apart was Quesada basically gave everybody a chance, and so he just bought all those guys into Marvel and said, okay, I'm giving you a chance to do something. And some of them, I think some of them needed that person on their shoulder all the time to get the work done. And they were probably the ones who resented it the most. It's like...
no,
but I think Quesada did give everybody a chance, and some people chose to run with that chance.
No, it was a really interesting time, and it was literally like right before I started doing the podcast. I came in 05. And so that really was a good education to see how CrossGen worked compared to Marvel and DC. And and it's funny now that there are these other good publishers that aren't doing superheroes, that are definitely doing other genres and embracing these other genres. Like I've never seen horror
Yeah.
as it is such a good time for horror right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, wow, just the explosion of different publishers and ideas and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you see the industry right now, Mike? Because
I think it's really strong. I think there's a lot of things which I think Marvel and DC could be doing, but I also see that there's a lot of other companies out there that are doing that stuff. So I think there's so much diversity there that if you want a specific kind of book, you can probably find that kind of book.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily been that way since probably the early 70s, when Marvel were putting out all that stuff, all that diverse different stuff. I don't think it's really been that way since then.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean,
DC
even, you look at Image stuff now and it's all individual stuff. It started off as a superhero imprint.
Sure.
But now it's just so diverse.
100%.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. No, absolutely, it's true.
And I think Dark Horse are building themselves back up as well, which is wonderful.
No, I absolutely agree, and I know in conversations with people at places like Vault and Mad Cave, Mad Cave in the last 3 years has certainly come on like gangbusters.
Yeah.
With what they've been doing and things.
Yeah.
Here's something interesting from Mike Jones. How would you jump at the chance to do a First Night style comic set in the 70s UK of Billy the Cat? He hears you're a fan of Billy the Cat as well.
Right. Yeah. That'd be pretty cool. I mean, yeah, Billy the Cat or Leopard from Lime Street or something like that. That'd be pretty cool. I'm still a massive Dread fan. I'm still a massive 2000 AD fan.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah, man. Have they approached you about doing any new stuff?
Well, the thing was, I mean, I've always been asked, but I've always been under exclusive. So every time they would ask, I'd be heartbroken because I had to turn it down. But I've done a couple of covers for Rebellion since May. So
cool.
that's actually worked out quite well. I did a cover for a new edition of Fiends of the Eastern Front, which was a Carlos Esquerra thing from the early 80s. And I also recently did the cover for the Judge Dredd Christmas magazine.
Fun.
And that's still on the stands at the moment. So that came out just before Christmas. Yeah. So I'd like to get to do a bit more 2000 AD stuff. It's it's where I broke in. It's the stuff I grew up on. So it's always got a special place for me. To do something like that.
As an American, it's always been a cool education learning about a lot of the ongoing, not only Dread, but I've told Andy Diggle before how much I loved Sinister Dexter, and I told Dave Gibbons how much I love Rogue Trooper.
Yeah.
It's like that. Yeah. No, they're neat ideas, and also the brevity of the chapters. Whether it's a 4-page Future Shock or just a chapter in a longer story in the magazine and everything. It's like that's.
Well, you've got somebody over there in Chicago who's just written a Rogue Trooper, right?
I forget who.
Yeah, Jeffrey D. Wessel.
I didn't know that. I don't know it. My God! I have to touch base.
He's just written a Rogue Trooper thing. Yeah,
I'll have to find him. I'll talk to
and other 2000 AD stuff as well.
Wow! Oh, that's great. Oh man, no, I know the Seeleys and the Nortons and the Scotty Youngs of that era,
right?
But no, that's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Mike, as always, man, I'm so excited, and I'm really glad that we're gonna get First Night. First Night.
Yep, First Night.
Right.
The Batman First Night.
The Batman First Night coming out at the beginning of March. It's Dan Jurgens and Mike Perkins. And we'll continue the First Night conversation with Dan next week.
Excellent.
But great excuse for us to catch up, man.
Yeah.
And I hope we see each other either by streaming or live sooner than later.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's always great to talk to you, man. So I appreciate you coming on today, and as always, continued success. Keep killing it.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thanks everybody for watching in the afternoon. Tonight I'm going to be talking to Mitch and Wayne, and we're going to do our usual recap of television and film. God, there's a lot to talk about. Certainly Echo dropping this week, and the wrap up of What If last week, and so many other great things. So and a lot of Star Trek news. I mean, I can't help it. Like I said, I think about Star Trek far too much, as will be evidenced by tonight's conversation that will be happening at 9 p.m. Eastern. Mike will be fast asleep while we're discussing live. But until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.